Hi, I'm Mr. Cellini, and today we're going to talk about how to write the Enduring Issues essay. This is the second video I'm doing on the Enduring Issues essay from the January 2026 exam. So if you didn't watch part 1, go ahead and do that, because there I go over the documents themselves, and now we're going to figure out how to best select an enduring issue and turn the information from those documents into a coherent essay. So exactly, we pick one issue, it's gotta be in minimum 3 out of the 5. That's why we make this list. Human rights violations was in all 5, actually, which gives us a lot of flexibility. But you're only gonna write about 3 documents in this essay. If you try to write about all 5, you're gonna do a poor job on other areas like historical circumstances and outside information. And you need those things to get a good grade in this essay. So we left off saying human rights violation is going to be our issue because it's in all 5 of the documents. But what's the other criteria we used on the process of choosing the documents? It's in all 5, but we're writing about 3. So how do I narrow it down? Yeah, now I choose which 3 out of the 5 I know the most about. And that might vary according to person, right? We talked about how you can write about your own personal experiences for outside information. So you could be a person who's from Haiti, who had to escape bad conditions in Haiti, and you know a lot about Haitian history. But we did not spend a lot of time in Haiti in class. We did not spend a lot of time on the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia in class. We spent 1 day on this. And you might not have even been here that day, so you might not really have any idea what that's all about. However, we spent a lot of time in this class on India. We spent a significant amount of time in class on Nelson Mandela and apartheid, whether you remember it or not. And we spent a heck of a lot of time in this class on China this year. So for me, I go, okay, human rights violations is in 3 out of the 5 minimum. It's actually in 5 out of the 5. So now I'm going to choose 3 that I know the most about in terms of outside information and stuff. So I'm picking Amritsar Massacre in India, which is Doc 2. I'm going to pick not Khmer Rouge. I'm going to pick apartheid, document 4. I'm going to pick Massacre at Tiananmen Square, document 5. Okay, that's a huge important part of this, guys, because if you were to take a look at the actual essay task, it says straight up at the very beginning to use and write about 1 enduring issue. If you write about more than 1 enduring issue, you're going to get into some trouble really, really quick. Identify and explain an enduring issue that comes up in the documents. Are you with me so far? So another thing that I posted for you guys is this sample enduring issues essay that I wrote, okay? And you're going to probably want to consult with this a little bit later on. So let's talk about it, okay? What we have here is an example introduction paragraph. I'm trying to show you guys what belongs in these body paragraphs and how to best maybe structure your thoughts. So we start our essay off, and we did this last time a little bit. You tell the reader right away that you know what enduring issue means, right? An enduring issue is a long-lasting or continuing problem faced by people over the course of history. Nice. If you don't remember that, it's also in the essay task. Doesn't sound quite as nice, but it's right here for you in case you forgot. Start your essay off with that. Then, what do? You tell the reader what enduring issue you're going to be writing about in your essay. But don't say, in my essay, I'm going to talk about human rights violations. You shouldn't be using first person in a social studies essay anyway. That just sounds like you're still in middle school. No, just tell the reader what the issue is and explain what it means. So human rights violations are an example of an enduring issue. This is when governments deprive people of life, liberty, property, or the freedom of speech. I've already hit on a couple of the key parts of the essay task. I identified and explained an enduring issue in the documents. I already checked off the first bullet point in my essay task. Next, in the introduction paragraph, I gave the reader a little preview of what's to come by highlighting one of the bad things that result from my enduring issue that I saw in the documents. One bad thing that comes from human rights violations is people sometimes die. So that's what I put here. People died when they were protesting at Tiananmen Square, right? If a government is killing a peaceful protester, that is a human rights violation, right? That's a denial of the right to life. So that shouldn't be too tough. That should be pretty easy. This last part might look confusing, but it's also not. I'm telling the reader 3 events from history that show the impacts of human rights violations. Instead of saying, in my essay, I'm going to talk about how documents 1, 3, and 5 show human rights violations, instead of saying the document numbers, What are these things? These are the titles that we gave each of the documents in our essay notes. This is why we put at the top of document 1, slavery in Haiti. This is why we put at the top of document 2, Amritsar Massacre. So if you forget this, I also posted this checklist for you guys, right? Which gives some sentence frames for what to put where in your introduction paragraph. So you're just listing the 3 events from the documents you're using that show the impact of the enduring issue. So for us, for me anyway, it would be Amritsar Massacre in India, Tiananmen Square Massacre, and apartheid in South Africa are 3 examples from history that show human rights violations. Let's say it's the Regents, maybe you forgot to put titles on your documents. I get that, that happens. And you have to say something like, this issue could be found in documents 1, 3, and 5. It's not the end of the world. It just sounds a little bit less professional. And in my opinion, your introduction paragraph is an opportunity to try to impress the grader right off the bat. Because I can tell you guys straight up, it's 2 full days that your history teachers in this building sit at a table and read these essays. And it's exhausting, we lose focus, it's not fun. So if you can impress that person right off the bat, that's a good thing. You want your reader to be impressed, and that's gonna help them give you a good grade on this essay. Okay, so that's all I did with my introduction paragraph. I said what enduring issue means. I told the reader what enduring issue I'm writing about. I gave the reader a taste of why this issue is a problem. And then I cited 3 events from history from the 3 documents I'm using. And I said, these are gonna show that human rights violations is a big deal. Cool. Now what do I do in a body paragraph? Again, there's a step-by-step list in the checklist, but this is it here. I have each section of this paragraph as a different color, and there are comments next to it explaining what is in this part of the paragraph. Start your body paragraphs off with a topic sentence. The Amritsar Massacre demonstrates human rights violations. Cool. Part 1, if you can, and we can, because we did this in class, is bring in your historical circumstances. How do I do that? I say before the event, comma, or prior to the event, comma, and I go back in time and I give a backstory. So if the event is about a massacre in India because of the British, talk about how the British got there in the first place. This is not hard. We've done this in class a million times. The British controlled India. They wanted India's natural resources. They wanted India as a market for new goods. They wanted to use Indian cotton to produce textiles. And India was known as the jewel in the crown because it was so special. What is there, like 2 sentences there? That's all you need for context or historical circumstances, whatever you want to call it. That would impress the reader right away. The purple is my document summary. This is just taking the things that we highlighted from the notes and putting them into complete sentences. Let me just get rid of this for a second. So if I go back to my Amritsar Massacre, I highlighted a couple of things here. Who, what, when, where, and why, right? When did it happen? 1919. What happened? The British shot a bunch of peaceful protesters on unarmed Indian protesters. Why is this a big deal? Because it led to eventually the end of imperialism. British imperial authority is British imperialism in India. So I just put those things into complete sentences in my paragraph. 1919 massacre, the British forces brutally suppressed what they perceived to be an uprising by firing on a crowd of unarmed protesters and therefore denied people the right to life. Trying to connect it back to the enduring issue I chose, right? Later on, this contributed to the Indian people wanting to fight for their independence. That's it. Look, it's 2 sentences again. That's all we need to do when it comes to a document summary. Keep it short, keep it sweet, keep it concise. And then I dropped in this, parentheses doc 2. This indicates to the reader that my document summary came from the documents packet. I'm sure you've done this in English class, parenthetical citations. Technically on the Regents, you do not have to do this. But I would recommend it, because like I said, we are going to get dizzy with all the grading. Sometimes the essays start to blur together after a while. So if you do this, you're helping your grader know that you used facts from the documents in your essay. And you have to do that. It's in the essay task. You cannot get a good grade on this essay if it's all outside information. They want to see that you can read and understand what you've read. So do that, if you can remember to do that. I closed out my paragraph with making connections to outside information. So, for example, this paragraph ended with Indian desire for independence. That's not the end of the story. They didn't just want independence, they fought for it, right? Gandhi, civil disobedience, boycotts, Salt March. And then I put how World War II was a turning point because the British could not afford to keep their empire anymore, right? So between Gandhi and World War II, India finally becomes independent. What you're seeing right here is the path to getting a 5 out of 5 on this, okay? It's very likely that your body paragraphs will not be this robust every single time, especially if I'm not there to help you guys on the Regents, which I won't be as much as I want to be. So maybe one of the body paragraphs does not have circumstances, or maybe one of the paragraphs does not have outside information. That's okay. But maybe then in those cases, you try to expand on your document summary a little bit to make that paragraph more robust. You got to use your judgment a little bit. If you have circumstances or evidence, outside evidence somewhere in your essay, that goes a long way. They're not expecting you to have this for every single document, is what I'm trying to tell you guys. So that's a sample body paragraph. Here's a sample conclusion paragraph, which again, looks very long here. Yours is not expected to be quite this long. For me, a conclusion paragraph for your Enduring Issues essay, a conclusion paragraph should not just be a summary of your essay. It's where you try to bring the enduring issue to the present and also talk about things that the world has done to try to stop the problem. The enduring issue of human rights violations continues. Here in the red is where I try to do two things. I try to give another event from history that shows it, that's not in the documents. So I talked about the Belgians getting their hands and feet cut off in the Congo when the Belgians had to collect rubber. But I also talked about a modern example of how in North Korea, there are prison camps that arrest people for criticizing the government where they work till they die. If you didn't know about that, you could choose something else. There are tons of human rights violations happening all the time. If your essay is about war or conflict and you want to write about what's going on in Palestine, do it. We did talk about that in class, right? The last thing I did here, which technically is optional, is where I discussed what the world has done to try to change human rights violations, meaning make it less of a problem. If you look at the essay test, look at this phrase right here. How the issue has continued to be an issue. That's where you try to write about something current or has changed over time. And I hate the way this is worded because all this means in plain English is what has the world done to make the issue less of an issue? For human rights violations, that's not hard. We talked about this a lot in class. So what did I write about? The United Nations issuing the Declaration of Human Rights after World War II. If you don't remember that, we spent half a period on this. We had a do now about that particular set of human rights that the United Nations said it was going to protect, right? So the United Nations is a peacekeeping organization that also strives to keep people protected. Do they fail a lot? Yeah. Did they prevent genocide in Rwanda? No. Did they stop the genocide that was going on in Bosnia? No. Did they try? Yes. Okay, so it's not perfect. So I talked about that. I mentioned how the Nuremberg trials were held after World War II to punish the people who did the Holocaust, right? That's an example of trying to stop human rights violations because now people who lead countries go, if I do this horrible genocide thing and I get caught, I might get put on trial, I might get the death penalty. That might make people think twice about committing human rights violations. And then I try to talk about photography. Photos are a big deal, guys, right? We had that video in class about Alice Harris taking photos of the Congolese missing their hands and feet, and that made the world go, holy, I can't believe this is going on. There was outrage around the world about how the Belgians were treating the Congolese in Africa. And that put pressure on Belgium to stop being so horrible. You might not remember that at the Regents, but let's say your essay is about, again, war and conflict, and you want to try to bring in something about Palestine, Israel, Gaza. I don't know. I'm pretty sure a couple of years ago, all I saw on social media feeds was pictures of the Gaza Strip being devastated by conflict. And that's a big deal because decades ago, when there was war between Palestinians and Jews in that part of the world, no one knew about how horrible it was for civilians. Okay, how regular people are losing their lives in these conflicts. Now everyone knows about it. Okay, and that changes things. That puts pressure on the leaders in, let's say, Hamas or Benjamin Netanyahu, who's the leader of Israel, to kind of back down, or people are trying to tell him to back down. So if you know about stuff going on in the world today, my point is, write about it, even if it's social media stuff.